Today we are looking at the results section. I'm going to go really quickly just because I have really good network right now. My last presentation this week ended very abruptly. The network just dropped off. So I will try to get through. We've got quite a bulk to get through. We're going to talk about how to move from data to narrative. How do you tell a story of, of your findings? During this session, you'll be able to, number one, just look at what is and what isn't a results section, the core components, how to structure your narrative. So basically, we'll be looking at the purpose and the content of the results section. The next thing we'll be doing, the next section we'll cover is data presentation techniques. And at the end, we will have an assignment. I'll also talk a little bit about, this is not set in stone, but it's something that, helps frame your mind on how you're presenting or how you're creating your results section. And that's basically 3 principles: clarity, conciseness, and objectivity. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to do. And I hope we can get through all of this. I will go through everything and we'll have a bit of an interactive session during the assignment. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. Either myself or the moderator will be able to answer those. If there's anything burning, you can always raise your hand and stop me as we go along. So in the first section, we're looking at what and why. What is the results section and why do we do it? The general purpose of your results section is to present very objectively what you found, okay? Without any bias, without any interpretation. You're not saying this is, and this is what we know. You're simply saying this is what we found, okay? You also want to answer the research questions that you posed in the introduction. You also report the data that led you to your conclusions. Later on in the week, we will discuss the discussion section, and it's very important to have a good results section as the basis of your discussion. So remember that the results section is not what you did. That's the methods, right? That's your method section. I think we've covered methods already, if I'm not mistaken. The results section is data driven. Okay, so you're telling a story using data. Let's see, can you see that clearly? So what exactly is in your results section? You have the text, right? And this text is the narrative. It guides the reader through what you found without interpretation. You're just saying, what's there. The figures, these include graphs, charts, images, diagrams, just for you to be able to visualize what you're showing, whether it's comparisons, patterns, trends, just visual aids and visualization tools. And then you've got tables. Tables typically are used for presenting very concise and precise numerical values or complex data, right? And basically your results section should be logical and it should follow your methodology. Okay, the order in which you did things is the order in which you present your results. And it should also there should be some logical flow between your research questions and, of course, your results. But then remember that even your methods are following that same logical flow to answer the research questions. So the results section is not a methods section. Okay? You're not talking about what you did, and what you want to do is you want to rather use the past tense to state what you found, not what you did. So the key difference, okay? It's not a discussion section. This surprising result means this. No, no, no. The result section is purely to present what you found. And don't include raw data and every single analysis. Be selective and highlight what's relevant. I know it's a common pitfall, especially for our dissertations. You want to increase the bulk. You want to show that you did a very good job in your study and in your work, and you end up bringing all the output from your analysis. You want to include all the raw data. That just overwhelms the reader, and we don't want that in a manuscript. So how do we do it? So you start with a big picture. Okay, the most primary, the basis of your entire study, your biggest result, your most important result, right? And then for other findings, you group them together. And basically, you want to present findings that answer a specific question. You want to put them together, right? You were looking for, the impact of X on Y. The first thing you're going to bring out is to show, whatever impact it is you were investigating, find that. But then maybe you found there were other factors that can also impact, the relationship between X and Y. So you want to bring those in and say these other factors also led to, a more positive effect or a more negative effect or a completely different effect than we were expecting, and you categorize them, right? And I can't overemphasize this. It has to be logical, right? And usually it's in the same order as your methods. So if your methods are structured very well and well thought out, then your results will follow that same order. Typically, if you've read, where are these subjects coming from, male to female ratios, age, very basic things with your pie charts and your bar graphs, very simple. And then you go to your primary outcome. What is it that you are looking at? Then you look at your secondary outcomes. And finally, you include your supplementary analyses. Depending on the journal you're submitting to when you're writing up your manuscript, it would be nice to put subheadings in, to guide the reader as to what they're looking at. So something that I do notice a lot, we sometimes have a disconnect as authors between the text, the tables, and the figures. You want to put all these figures in there, but they're very unrelated to the text. So ensure that even as your text is telling a story, the tables and the figures are providing evidence, right? And don't leave tables or figures hanging in limbo. And the reader has to now start thinking, okay, what was the author trying to say? I've put an example there in the slide, if you can see. In the text, you've written, the patients in the treatment group had lower BPs after 12 weeks compared to the placebo group, and you put your mean difference there, and you're going to have a nice reference to which figure will show this. So you put it there at the end, figure 1, right? So that's very clear, very nice, and you've got the evidence in your figure 1. And you make sure that every table and figure is referenced in the order in which they appear. So this is part 1 of our discussion. The results section is basically curated, well thought out, objective, and it's presenting the most relevant data. And remember, when you're doing a study, you're collecting all this data. You've got your data collection tools. You've got all this data coming in, but you really need to tailor it and sift through and tell us, what you found, how it answers your research question, or how it doesn't answer your research question. Actually, even negative findings are findings. So I'm going to pause here. This was our part 1, and just go back a bit and see if we have followed. What is the results section and why do we do it? This presentation is probably the shortest because the bulk of the work you've done in your methodology, you've done in your literature review, you've done a lot of the work prior to reaching results. So when you get to writing the results section of your manuscript, it's a very rewarding and satisfying point to reach in your study because you're almost there. So I want to open up the chat a little bit. Are we able to have some of our cameras on just to get a bit of feedback in terms of anything you've learned in the first session, or we're also brilliant, we knew this all along? I don't know if I know anyone who I can pick on. I'm just gonna scroll through and see if there's any names I know. If not, I would just hand over to the moderator for a minute or two to just go around the room and get some feedback on part 1 in terms of clarity, in terms of understanding, and if it has been useful to debunk some of the issues we have with results section. So back to you, moderator, before we go into the next section rather.
Okay, thanks. So I think I can also just randomly pick a few participants from the list to tell us how it's been so far. Yeah, maybe we can start with Wallace Munyiri.
You could turn your camera on. Virtual webinars are very difficult to keep your concentration, so turn your camera on, or just say hi, or you can even just say, I knew that all along. Nothing you learned. I knew this the whole time. And I think from the editorial perspective, the results section can really make or break a paper. A lot of authors make mistakes in this section. It seems simple enough, but a lot of papers are sent back, not outright rejection, but are sent back for major revisions, just based on the methodology or the method section versus the results section. So it's simple enough, but at the same time, its simplicity doesn't diminish its importance and its complexity, if I can put it that way. It's a complex section, very simple to understand, but it can really make or break your entire paper. I think Wallace was on the floor.
I'm not sure
Someone
if he's
said,
able to unmute, but then someone has said
okay.
the biggest take home for them is making sure that it's not a data dump.
Exactly. So I know I'm not sure what cadre of people we are on the call, but I know as scientists, if we put it that way, we want to show how well you did your study. You want to show all the data and how brilliant the study was and all the proof, but you have to curate it, okay? You have to curate it and tell a story, all right? Tell a story of, what it is you're doing, how, what you found, and be very, very intentional about how you're doing it and not just mechanical and overly scientific. I know we're very scientific, but don't be, in a rush to show off everything. Okay, there's a lot of self-control that comes into play, and just structure it, and keep going back to your objectives, follow your objectives, look at your methodology, think through what you did, and think what is it that you want, what message are you trying to, what story are you trying to tell. And remember, even negative findings or no findings, those are results as well. So report those. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
We will
Then
go. Yeah.
there's a question.
Yeah.
How do you know the boundary between showing that you are thorough and not putting too much in the results?
That's a good question, and it's a difficult balance. So I think the best way to do it is to be methodical. That's why we do all this planning before you do a study. And you have your research question, your hypothesis, your null hypothesis, all those things that you do as you're structuring your research paper are really an important part of building the next section. So for results, you really want to focus on two, I would say two. You look at your objectives. What is your objective? Keep going back. Keep looking at your gap. What information gap do we have? What information gap do we have? What information? Don't lose sight of that, right? And then I know there's so many interesting things which come up in the process of doing your results. You can't believe, oh my goodness, my intervention has changed the lives of, every patient in the ward. But what was your aim? Was your aim to how many lives are changed, or was your aim to just, document that the intervention was necessary, for example, just as an example? So don't get carried away in the many, 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 many data points you come up with. Focus on one. What was the gap? What was the objective? And what's your methodology? Use that to guide you. And that will help you not be too verbose and not go overboard with data dump. Okay.
Yeah, that's clear. Thanks.
Great. I think something else I should emphasize is your captions, right? You have to be very good with captioning and, the text of your results section. Be very objective, regardless of what the data is saying, be very objective and be very truthful, right? Okay, so that's the end of part one. Part two is the fun part. This is what we actually all look at when you're reading a paper. Many times when I'm skimming through a paper really quickly, I look through the tables, look at the captions, and see what's really going on. I also look at the abstract and see what's the paper all about. And then typically you'll go maybe to the introduction and background, see what's going on. And so it's very important that you present your data in a way that is not a headache to read, and we have to really dig through what did you mean? Why did you say that? What did you mean by that? What you're saying. Okay, so you have to be very effective in the way you present your data. So when do you use figures? When do you use tables? It's like a very simple thing to do, but you have to be very meticulous in your approach to data presentation, because it will make or break. Depending on how you present your data, you could completely distort your story and lose the reader completely, right? So if you want to show a trend, a relationship, or a pattern, then you really want to use a graph or a chart, because the overall shape of the data, how the data looks over time or in relation to each other, the scatter plot, it's more important than the exact number. And the exact number of, sometimes the population size may be so small that you're not able to look at the absolute numbers. But when you display it in a figure, you'll be able to see in the discrete changes and fluctuations, right? So typically we use bar charts for comparisons before and after, or two different, similar, but two different outcomes or two different exposures. Scatter plots, we use them for correlations over time, and same for line graphs, which show trends over time. I'm sure we've all used these things, so we won't dwell too much on them. When it comes to tables can get very boring and very monotonous very quickly. So be sure to use them well, right? If you need to present very precise, discrete numerical values, maybe for comparison, or demographic data, you want to put, male, you want to put all the demographics in there. And alternatively, when you've got a lot of data set that has many variables or very specific discrete values, then you use a table. To use a pie chart for that. Now, pie chart is better, for example, a graph is better when you are showing proportions or you are showing distributions, right? So I put this figure intentionally, okay? When it comes to figures, please keep it simple, keep it clear. Use the simplest, okay? Avoid 3D effects like the one I've put in I know it's the era of AI and, want to put all these fancy things that may end up being chart junk, very unnecessary. They distract you from the data we're trying to actually see, and it becomes difficult to understand, right? Make sure you label everything, okay? All the elements, all the data points, all the bars, everything is very clear and legible, right? You need to make sure your axes are also labeled with units. Be very meticulous. This is actually, if you think about it, high school stuff, high school mathematics. They used to make us label our axes, label your x-axis, label your y-axis, and it still holds true. Okay, very basic, but very important. Put your units, and then also make sure you've put a legend that's easy to understand. We shouldn't struggle to figure out what does, this synonym mean. SBP, what's SBP? Is it systolic blood pressure? Is it someone's, is the acronym initial? What's going on? Make sure it's clear. And if you're using non-standard acronyms, just make sure it's clear. In fact, even for standard ones, make sure it's very clear what you're trying to communicate. Also, always state, for example, what the error bars represent. Okay, what is it you're showing us in your error bars? We don't know, so put it there, and use the same color scheme and style throughout the manuscript. I know PowerPoint and a lot of the Microsoft tools now have an AI designer that can help you, and everything fancy, you want to use different colors, please don't do that, okay? Try and use a uniform scheme across your manuscript. And remember, every legend, the caption on your figure should be able to stand alone. It should make sense alone. It should have a title, like I mentioned, any abbreviations or symbols, and a description of any specific treatments or conditions, like, this for this population, this was the control population, or this was the exposure population. They were separated by, XYZ, and you just include what you did exactly. Not what you did as in methods, but just, specific, stand out, and include the details of the statistical test. Is it a one-way ANOVA? What is it? What did you do? What did you do? What is it exactly that we're looking at? I don't know why this slide is black, but okay. So when reporting your statistics, you always want to ensure that you include the sample size. Okay, what sample size did you use for this? When it comes to descriptive stats, you include your mean plus your standard deviation, or your IQR for non-normal data, right? If you're using inferential statistics, make sure you tell us your test statistic, the degree of freedom if applicable, and the exact p-value, right? So if your p-value is 0.032, say 0.032, not less than 0.05. I know we're all culprits of that. I have done this so many times. And just to seem, the p-value is less than 0.05. So please avoid that. Just state the exact p-value. Round off to maybe three decimal points. And if the p-value is less than 0.01, state it as such. Make sure it's very clear. When you look at confidence intervals and effect sizes, you find that they're more relevant and informative than a p-value on its own. I know we believe so much in p-value, and it shows that your desired effect is significant, but it's better to put your effect size as well as your confidence intervals. So I've put a couple of, let's see, oops. I've put a couple of nice statistics, we use the t-test. For example, the t-test, the intervention group score the control group, and then you put your value there, you put your p-value, and you put your coefficient there. We look at the ANOVA. That's the example there. There was a significant effect on the treatment of the treatment on growth of whatever it is you're investigating, and you've put your nice p-value there. You've put everything there. A strong and positive correlation was observed, and you put it there with the confidence interval. Your chi-square test as well, you put everything in there nicely. And that's a very clear way of expressing everything you did. And it's very nice, and we can actually see what you're talking about. And remember, this is on the background that you've got very clear figures, very clear graphs, very clear narratives. Always remember to let the data speak for itself, right? Report all the relevant results, including what you may consider non-significant, but don't hide inconvenient data. If you think it will show that your whatever you were looking for didn't really happen, then you still need to report that, okay? Including negative results. Avoid cherry picking results or p-hacking, where you tweak your p-value to make your findings significant. And also, if there was any data points that were excluded, make sure you say it, maybe the outliers or anything that you excluded for any reason, as long as you had a predefined reason or rationale that exclusion, you make sure you state it very clearly. So really, the results section demands a lot of transparency and objectivity. So I think I speak from the editorial side of things. We really respect what I like to call the golden triad of scientific writing. Okay, I think the only other triad, the most famous triad, do we know which one it is? Can anyone put it in the chat? The most famous medical triad. are we? Or are we not all medical? I assume we're all medical. Is it there in the chat? Let's see if anyone got it right. There we go. Yes. Unhappy triad. Now I want to hear from you. What's the unhappy triad? I see. Is there a method? Okay. I see. Yes, a lot of us have got it right. Now I want to know what the unhappy triad is. I really want to know. And what does our triad of death lead us to? Bleeding, right? Okay. So the golden triad of scientific writing, how do I get? Okay. Clarity, conciseness, objectivity. The reader must understand what you're saying immediately. And I'll give you a personal excerpt that I believe was amazing. Beautiful. The findings were awesome. I spent almost a year on the entire project and writing it up, and I really wanted to prove that I have done it. The findings are great. I've done it. And when reviewer one read it, reviewer one said, I have no idea what the author did. I really don't know. But just from the results section, it kind of looked this was really good work, but we have no idea what, just from the tables, we can see there's a change in, the diagnostic time, but we have no idea what the author is saying. And I was so heartbroken, but I realized I liked clarity and conciseness. I was so verbose in writing everything and trying to show that we've done all this great work. Okay, so that's a personal lesson in terms of clarity and conciseness. Then objectivity, maintain your objectivity and your integrity as an author and as a researcher, and make sure that your message is based on the data, not your opinion or your biases or your own interpretation, interpreting the data to suit yourself. So let's look at clarity. How do we, how are we ensuring that we're clear? So use very simple and direct language. Avoid jargon and, complex sentences. Start your paragraphs with a topical sentence that states the key finding, and define abbreviations first time you use them. So I've given an example. As you can see there, the author was trying to be very fancy with regard to enzymatic activity. A diminution was observed. And what are you saying, right? Enzymatic activity decreased, you see. So keep it simple. Your reader wants to know, what you found. So don't use redundant words and phrases, and avoid noun-heavy constructions, okay? I'll give you a few examples. It is important to note that the results showed a tendency towards improvement. It is important to note is really unnecessary. Showed a tendency towards improvement, it's really unnecessary. If you're being concise, you just go in and say the results showed a trend towards improvement. We conducted an investigation into the effects of. We know you conducted the investigation. So you can just make it short. We investigated the effects of X, Y, Z. Okay. So report what the data is, not what you think it is or what it's implying. Avoid interesting, surprising, remarkable. Received a paper from a part of the world that's very well known for a lot of grandiose language, and the authors were using words like wonderful, amazing, and it just makes you doubt the work that's being done. So use neutral language. Instead of we amazingly found that X caused a huge increase in Y, you go, well, X increased Y by X%, and you put your p-value, okay? Focus on the data, not the researcher. The data suggests, not we believe, okay? The authors believe. It is the author's opinion that, we want to be very objective and present our data effectively. So we're almost at the end. I know we struggle a lot. At proposal level, you're writing for the future. But at the point where you have results, it's past tense, right? So use the past tense to describe what you found in your study. The average patient weight was, protein levels increased. Use past tense, okay, to refer to established knowledge, tables, figures that now exist in the manuscript, okay? These results are consistent with the hypothesis, and just look, show. So for the past tense is what you found, right? And present tense is for, the established knowledge, what you've, what now exists in your manuscript, okay? So results section, I put a formula there. I hope the black background is showing. Basically, finding plus support plus statistics, okay? So in an experiment with some, a mouse-based study or something, you find that the viability of the cells decreased, right? So that's your finding. Then the support is, where did you see this? Probably in the high dose group, the group that you intervened or gave a particular drug or intervention, right? And the statistics, it's versus what? Versus the control group, right? And then you show the statistic, 45% versus 95%, right? So cell viability decrease high dose group compared to the control group, and you put your statistics there. Do you see how simple that is? And there's no emotion attached to it. There's no subjectiveness. It's just the finding, the support for it, and your statistics. I think I'll pause there for a minute because that is quite nice. I wish someone taught me this when I started writing. What do you think? Is this something you'll be able to use? You can put it in the chat. How do I see the chat? I can't see the chat. It's the last slide, so let's just get some feedback from around the room. How do we feel? How do we feel about that? I really like I use this all the time. You say what you, I can't actually open the chat. How do I press on it? Oh, there it is. Okay, I'm seeing hearts, so people are engaged, right? I like to use, and is really short, to be honest. So we'll go straight into, I used an example, I think was not specific to any one of us particularly. Okay, so we're gonna, do you have some paper or pen? Or I'm a paper and pen person. The nice thing about webinars and adult learning is that you get to have answers you. So it's not like an exam setting. So if we just read, does anyone want to read it through? I'm getting xerostomia from talking to myself. We're almost there. I had targeted an hour. I know it's supposed to be an hour 30, but we'll leave a bit of time at the end for a bit of back and forth, and I'll hand over back to the moderator. Is anyone just turn on their mic, maybe their video, and just read it out? And then we'll go around the room and just get a bit of feedback on how we can redraft this. Or if it's okay, then you say it's okay, I like it. So should I pick anyone I see on my screen? I actually don't know any of you. Oops, the answer came up. How do I, moderator? I can't see the participants, so please pick someone to just read through it. No answers, just read through it.
Okay. Ben Chukula, are you able to read? Seems like he's dropped off.
Anyone, it's just reading.
Yeah, I can read.
Go ahead.
Yeah. In our fascinating experiment, when we looked at the growth of the plants that had been subjected to the novel fertilizer treatment, it was very obvious to us that they were doing much better. we saw that the average height was a lot more than the other group that just got water. We measured them every day, and the difference just got bigger and bigger. It's really quite amazing and proves our fertilizer works incredibly well. The numbers we got are in the table below, and you can see the trend is very clear. Statistically, it was significant too.
So how do we feel about this? Nice one. Is it concise? Is it clear? Let's go back here. What do we think about clarity? Since you don't have your mics on, just put thumbs up, thumbs down. Let's see the thumbs up, thumbs down. Clarity. There's a shocked face. Anyone for clarity? Let's put it back. Clarity. Any votes for clarity? Why are you all shocked? We said thumbs up or thumbs down. How is it for clarity? It's clear. I see a thumbs up. It's clear. Is it clear or it's not clear? There's some laughing faces. So those who are giving it a thumbs up, you think this is, let's see, there's someone in the chat. Someone has said, where is it? It's wordy, not clear. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else? So what about the stuff highlighted? Do we think it's objective? What do we think? What about objectivity and conciseness? Is it objective and concise? You can see there, their experiment was fascinating. They looked at the growth. These are amazing researchers. They grew the plants faster and faster. It's got bigger and bigger. It's quite amazing. How do you think we would, anyone to write in the, my internet is saying it's unstable. Okay, we're almost at the end. I don't mind if it cuts now. Anyone to say how they feel about what could we remove to make it better? There's more subjective, lack statistics support by neutral language was not used. It doesn't seem that objective. No data to support the highlighted areas show some subjectivity. Especially the last sentence. Okay, remove we. Okay, I can see we're all engaged. Very good. Very, very good. So what do you think of this? I need a volunteer to read this one. A volunteer to read? Is it just you and me, moderator?
Because it's a webinar, I can only allow people to unmute once they've raised their hands. Yeah, so let me see. I've seen Cyrus has raised their hand. Cyrus, are you able to unmute?
Okay. Is anyone unmuting?
All right. Plants treated with fertilizer demonstrated greater growth than water-only controls. Final average plant height was significantly greater than the treatment group, 45.2 centimeters, plus or minus 3.1, compared to the control group, 28.7 centimeters, plus or minus 4.5. And the t-test was 18 with about 4.89 and a p-value of less than 0.001, that is referring to table 1. This height difference increased steadily over 14-day period, measurement period, as illustrated in figure 1.
So what do we think of that? Doesn't that just, it's very objective. And in fact, as the readers, we would be the ones to say, oh, what a fascinating experiment. And it's quite obvious that the plants are doing much better, and it's amazing. We as readers can have these feelings of, wow, that's great. But you as an author cannot say those things. It's just improper. So, actually a bit early than an hour, but basically, I would say create a checklist for yourself when writing your results. Is it logical and easy to follow? Are all the tables and figures necessary, and are they referenced in text? And just as a secret, this is what we use even as editors. We just tick all these things. Are the abbreviations defined? Is the writing clear, concise, and objective? Are statistics reported fully and correctly? And are all the research questions from the introduction addressed? And that's a part where authors fail a bit, and you wonder, why is my paper getting rejected? You've got all these amazing findings, but they're not answering any of the questions that you brought up, okay? And ensure that there's no interpretation or discussion of the findings in your results. Okay, we've come to the end.